What's up, guys? So, today is gonna be a solo show, so I was just thinking, what kind of a show would I have by myself? I mean, it's been such a long time since I have actually done a show by myself, so I figured I would cover a couple of things. Well, probably more than a couple, but I will cover some things. So, number one, a question that a lot of people ask is, how do you know when you have a self-defense teacher or martial arts teacher, whatever it is? How do you know you have a good one? So the way that I answer that question is, you have to have a teacher that is attentive, a teacher that pays attention. And so when you look at some of these big academies, you have one instructor, and then there's, I don't know, like 30 students. And it can be done. You can have that many students and then be attentive with them, but it's very unlikely that every single person in that group is actually getting the proper attention, the proper instruction. I mean, it's the same way in school when you have one teacher and there's like 30 kids, and I settle on the name on the number 30. I don't know why. So you have 30 kids in a class, and they're not all going to be straight A students. But I have a theory about that. So see, now I'm gonna kind of go into the conspiracy here. Man, look how dark my hands have gotten due to the summertime. Anyways, it's kind of distracting. So I have a theory, and it was just a theory until not too long ago. It was brought to my attention that the school system that we have, I just went on a rabbit trail, but it's okay. So the school system that we have was designed to make factory workers. I mean, that's why you have, the bell system, how, the bell goes off and everybody has to leave, and there's stress, there's stress going on, so everybody's rushing to their next class, like, oh man, I gotta hurry up, because you're being, brainwashed into feeling the stress, like, man, you gotta hurry up and get to your shift, you know. And imagine if you had a school where, let's say that they say we want everybody to graduate. Imagine if everybody graduated and there was no one left behind. So who's gonna be the construction worker? Who's gonna be the guy that cleans the porter potties? Who's gonna be the garbage man? Who's gonna do the work that nobody wants to do? Who's gonna work in that warehouse? Who's gonna do all these things? If you have a school of everybody's a graduate, everybody gets a degree, and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of like went on a rabbit trail there. So we gotta get back. Let's get back, people. So what you want is somebody that, there's not one instructor. There's got to be multiple instructors in the class. They all have to pay attention to the students. They're able to kind of teach them proper technique. And for that, you're going to need more than one person, because you can't have, unless it's a really long class, and then you're going to be like, all right, everybody, line up, and everybody do a strike, everybody and do all these kind of things. So, like, if somebody throws a punch, you want to make sure that they're actually in good sync. They're actually executing proper technique, and that is a big mistake that I see in a lot of academies. In a lot of academies, what I see is there's students that were allowed to move up, and it's for a lot of reasons. If the kids are little, you can have like ceremonies when they get their stripes. Like if they have a white belt and then they move up, you can have a ceremony for them to, get a white stripe on their belt. To get, is that a stain? What is that? It is. Looks like blood. Anyways, so yeah, so you have like a ceremony so that as they advance in little things, as they get a little bit older and progress, it's a little bit harder, just a little bit, Instead of everybody gets a belt. All right, guys, it's belt day. You're going from. Hopefully, I'm not too loud. You're not going from your white, your yellow belts, and now you're going to become green belts all together because today's the day. Instead, you want somebody that's attentive and is making sure that all the techniques being executed are proper, that they actually grow correctly, that they're doing all these things because it's a lot easier for you to correct bad habits in the moment. You want to correct things so they develop good techniques and good, habits instead of trying to correct. There's a lot of people out there that they end up, becoming black belts and then you kind of look at the way they execute techniques and they don't do them properly because they were never taught, like, oh man, you're not doing that right. And the reason why they got a black belt was because they were in a system, and that system just kind of like progresses. Okay, you've been here 6 months, now it's time to upgrade your belt. Instead of somebody graduating because they got the skill. Like, there's a lot of people out there, where they're punching and they throw their punch and they stand directly in front of where they throw that combination. They don't do this. They don't move because you don't want to be in the way. Instead, they stand up straight, right in the direction where the punch is being thrown. And they come in and there's no head movement. Nobody's teaching them how to move. They're stiff. And it's just improper techniques that were never corrected. So if you take that person and you're, saying like, okay, we're going to work on this. We're going to work on your technique. We're going to work on, it's a lot harder because now they develop rooted bad habits that's going to affect them. And once they leave that academy and let's that they pursue a career in martial arts or anything like that, like fighting, like they want to compete, those are the type of habits that a trainer later has to correct because they have the improper, they have bad habits, basically, bad habits. So there's what is that guy's name? I think his name is Lomachenko, but he's a pretty good boxer, but he has a lot of bad habits. And he comes in, he throws his punches, and then he always moves to the same side. Pop, pop. He moves to the same side, and whenever somebody times him, boom, boom, and he moves, they always catch him. Bah! He gets hit because people are like, okay, he's gonna throw the 1-2, and he's gonna slip always to the right. He's gonna go boom, boom, then to the right, and people can actually figure that out and they can time it. And that is something that needs to be corrected. You look at him and like, man, and then he gets into a new camp with a new coach, and his new coach is like, man, I've noticed that this guy. So they have to like basically rebuild him. Like, we're gonna take him from the ground up. So anyways, what makes a good instructor? We're gonna get back to it. What makes a good instructor is somebody that's able to catch these things early, somebody that cares enough for his students that they're actually gonna correct them when they're executing improper techniques. Gonna correct them when they do things incorrectly. It's gonna correct them when they do all these things. That way, the student's able to move up and confident. And it's not just. And you see, the thing with self-defense. Sorry, there's just so much. This like with self-defense, a lot of it is not just the physicality of it. It's not just you being physical. Like, okay, we're going to do this. And then now that you know how to fight, go out there into the world and behave yourselves. Instead, it should be 2 parts. It should be the physical part of it, where you're learning how to properly defend yourself, how to properly do all these things. But also what it is there should be the building up of the character. What you want. You want kids or adults to develop confidence. I mean, a confident person is not, I'm not talking about cocky. I'm talking about somebody that's confident. A confident person carries himself, is able to stand, chin up, chest out, shoulders back, and then that's how they carry themselves throughout, the world. You're not slouching, you're not looking like a victim, you're confident. You're walking around and you're able to, do these things. And when you develop confidence, you actually don't find the need to victimize somebody else because you feel like you're lacking something, because you feel like, you need to make yourself feel better, and the only way you know how to do that is by victimizing somebody. If you teach somebody um, confidence, they're not going to need those things because they feel good. They understand, what they're capable of, and the best case scenario is they want to help people. Like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to properly defend yourself. I'm going to teach you how to do all these things. So when somebody develops confidence, it's somebody that's not going to be a target because predators can actually see it. A predator can see somebody that's confident. They're a little bit too calm. Um, when you're walking, through a parking lot, which I don't suggest that you walk through a parking lot, or down a dark alley. And I hate these shows out there. There's or not these, yeah, I guess shows, and then they have these ads like so there used to be this magazine. I think it's still around, but I'm just that old. There used to be this magazine called Black Belt Magazine, and anybody that's looked in a Black Belt magazine knows that there is like ads in it, and a lot of the ads are like ads for swords, for nunchaku, for the bow, but also for self defense. And there's always some guy, and he's standing there like this, or he's standing there like this. This is more likely he's standing there like this, and he's posturing up like this, and he's got that face on, and it says, "My name is Igor, and I can crush the skulls of 20 men," and it's just so weird to see those kind of things. But anyways, so you see those ads, and then you realize that I forgot what I was talking about. So anyways, getting back to what I was talking about, I'm very tired, so I have forgotten what I was talking about, but I needed to pause and regain myself and do all those things. Anyways, yeah, so these magazines are like, I'll teach you how to kill 20 men with one strike. You punch them, their head falls off, their eyeballs pop. You can walk down a dark alley with confidence. But in reality is, in a self-defense situation, I don't suggest you walk down a dark alley. I don't suggest you putting yourself in those kind of situations. I mean, it's common sense. So how do you stop somebody from attacking you down a dark alley at 2 in the morning? Well, guess what? Don't be down a dark alley at 2 in the morning. So self-defense is a way for you to think about things differently, think about things logically. I get the question, I used to get this question all the time. They're like, well, it's the holidays and it's Black Friday and it's chaotic. How can I protect myself from these crowds of people that are out there and they're trying to hurt me over a GameCube or not GameCube, one of these video game systems that I could play video games with. Like, how do I protect myself? Well, number one is a video game really worth risking your life? I don't believe so. So don't put yourself in that position. But I mean, if you're gonna just in everyday life, like if you're gonna do your shopping and if you're gonna do all these things, number one, everybody always carries their bags in their dominant hand. Which one's your dominant hand? Like if you're right-handed, carry your bags on your left hand. Why? Because you have more strength with your dominant hand. You're able to strike if you need to defend yourself with your dominant hand. There's plenty of things that you can do out there to protect yourself and to it's the mindset. Don't do that. Walk always with a purpose. Don't what do they call that? Dilly-dally around. Don't, like, oh, I'm going to go see it. Walk with a purpose always. And I'm not teaching people to be paranoid. I want to teach people to be, logical. Okay. You have to have logic. You're not going to go, hang around at like midnight at a Walmart parking lot if it's not go in for what you need to do and get out. If you have children, the number one thing is when you're pushing the shopping cart and you're getting your kids in the car, when you're by the shopping cart and you have your kids, a lot of people, I see this all the time. People will open up the back or they'll open up their car and they're putting their groceries away and their kids are sitting there in a cart, or their kids are standing next to them. The first thing you want to do is put your kids in the car first, because if you have your kids in the cart and then a dirtbag comes around and he grabs one of your kids, then guess what? You're his now. Like now you do whatever he wants you to do because you're trying to protect your kids. So the first thing that I suggest is get your kids in a car. If you have anything, get your kids in a car. Always look around. Always be aware of your surroundings. Always have your head on a swivel. So always be looking around. Make sure that there's no yeah, and then put your groceries away. So yeah, kids in a car first. All right, let's continue. Okay, so we're going to talk about tools now. So, let's see. What I like to carry, see, and that also depends on what state you're in. A lot of times, your state will not allow you to have certain tools. Sorry, I'm winded. Oh, that is crazy. They will not allow you to have certain tools that you may need for self-defense. I did a video last week on the stick. So it's, I demonstrated how you strike and all these kind of things. This is a very effective tool in the right hands. You gotta have a little bit of training. Doesn't take much. Just learn to strike, learn to defend, learn to parry, and all those kind of things. So the stick is one that I really like. But a lot of the tools are not readily available or legal in your area. I know that a lot of people out there carry pocket knives. They carry all these kind of things. Preferably, I don't like folding blades. I like the fixed blades is what I go to. This one here is a nice cheap one by Ozark Trail. So these are great. I mean, I like fixed blades because they don't break. A lot of these knives that are folders will break on you. You try to hit the spring, and the spring breaks, and you have a wobbly knife. It's just an illusion. It's not really wobbly. It's a mind game. But with a fixed blade, it's strong, and you got to make sure that it's full tang. Also, what does that mean? That it's a single piece that runs all the way. This, I wrap myself a paracord, so just an example. So that it's full tang. And a lot of people out there will carry knives, they'll carry weapons, but they don't know how to use them properly. A lot of it is also a mindset. A lot of people think I'm gonna pull my knife out, and with the knife, I'm gonna chucky people, but in reality, that's how you end up hurt. That's how you end up hurting yourself. It becomes really ineffective. It becomes a liability. So learn to utilize the tool properly. Like with a knife, the crazy thing about the knife is that a lot of people don't think that if you get into a knife fight, you're gonna get cut, regardless. I don't care who you are. If you have a knife and somebody else has a knife and you're both in a knife fight, you're gonna get cut. It's just who's the more skilled, who has the most, not just confidence, but who's the most calm and is able to think logically, rationally when it comes to defending themselves. A lot of people will hold a knife like this. Sorry, I have a really big hand. Hold a knife like this, and then, they'll try to stab. The best way that I find, and this is just for me, the best way that I find is I like to put my thumb on the back of the spine of the blade. I don't like serrated knives. The knives that I carry have a very smooth edge because the serrated end will actually get caught in clothing. So do that. See, it's caught on clothing. If somebody's wearing a heavy coat or something, or whatever the situation is, and you go to slice and it gets caught, you may lose your knife. You're going to lose your knife because of that. It slows down penetration because of that. It's just rough. I'm not teaching people how to kill or how to become. I'm just saying, if you're going to use a weapon for self-defense, learn how to use it properly. I like the thumb method on the spine. It gives me the most control. It gives me the more accuracy when I stab. Because if you take something like this and you're able to draw a line somewhere or a dot, and I say, okay, now take this and just poke it on the first try. A lot of people will miss, But if I were to tell you, take your thumb and place it on that spot, okay? You do it because it's part of your body. So you kind of learn how to aim your body correctly, I hope. But with a knife, if you put the thumb, not only does it give you more control, it gives you more accuracy because you're aiming your thumb with the blade. So that's one tool that I utilize here. This, you guys know what this is? This can fit in a purse, can fit in a backpack, can fit in your pocket. I don't know if they're legal in places like California. Well, everything is illegal in California. I'm surprised there's mechanics out there because they would probably say you can't use a screwdriver because it's dangerous. So this, it's just a little riot baton. So it extends. Now you have a long weapon to use, like the stick I demonstrated earlier. Whack, So you have a weapon just like that, only it telescopes and it gives you more of a reach. It gives you a harder impact. It's got that tip there. So this, again, if you watch the stick video, you strike the clavicle, you break that collarbone, you break the eye socket, you can strike there with something like this. It's got a little bit of weight, so it's got the advantage over the other stick. With this, you can confidently strike a knee and just break that knee. You can break a shin bone. So this is not available in a lot of states, but if you can use this, I recommend this because it's an excellent tool and it's compact. It's about that big. It's, I guess, the size of from my wrist to this. So there you go. Another weapon that I like to carry, another tool that, again, we fall back under the legalities of things, is I carry these. These, but again, these are legal where I'm at. They may not be legal in your state. So those are my tools. Those are the things that I use for self-defense. If I need it, of course, there's the concealed carry. I carry a firearm, of course. And here's another thing is that I see when you're talking about self-defense is people that go to the range and then they go and they draw their firearm and they have their firearm and they're hitting that piece of paper, pop, 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 every time. It's like, yeah, see how good I am? I'm just like the guys from that video game Contra. Everything, I'm able to aim, all that kind of stuff. So then I tell people, do some push-ups, do some, jumping jacks, do something that gets your heart rate up, okay? And now that your heart rate is up, now aim that firearm. Now aim, that gun, and now place those shots on target. And then see how your breathing affects the way that you aim. See your rapid heart rate keeps your hand a little bit more shaky because now your heart's pumping. But why do we want to do those things? It's because it's going to emulate a real life situation. If you're in a life and death situation and you draw your firearm, your heart rate's going to be going. You're going to be breathing a little bit heavier. And if you're breathing a little bit heavier, your aim's going to be off. So it's going to be off. You're going to be a little bit less confident. All those things are going to happen. So how do you combat that? Get used to it. Like, go out there, do those things, and then aim your firearm, then place those shots on target, because now you're you're mimicking a situation where your adrenaline is going, your heart rate is up, and that's the next tip that I have is just do those things. Another tip that I have is, okay, so once I was at a gas station, and there was this really heavy guy, super heavy, I mean really unhealthy, and he ran into a friend of his, and this guy was open carrying. He had, I forget, he probably had like a Walther or something, or it could have been a Glock, I don't remember, but the point is, he was standing in line, and he was open carrying. I don't have an issue, with you carrying your firearm. I mean, a lot of states now are going constitutional, like Idaho and Utah. There are these states that are going, you don't need a concealed carry permit anymore. It's called constitutional carry. Have your firearm. And so it's called constitutional carry. You don't need to have a permit now, so you can carry it. So carry it concealed. I don't like seeing open carry. Why? You can do it if you want. Like I said, if that's your choice, it's okay. Of course, this is America. You do have the right to be wrong. So so then when I see people that are open carrying, I say, okay, in a situation where there's somebody and he's waving a firearm, you're the first person they're gonna shoot. He's like, this person is the person that presents the bigger threat to me right now because he's armed. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shoot this person, and that's how I'm gonna make sure that I rob this place, more confidently and a lot more calm. So, but if you're concealed, they don't know who has a firearm, but if you're gonna open, see, and that's the thing. Okay, back to the story. I'm sorry, I kind of got sidetracked here. So okay, so this guy, his friend saw him like, hey bro, what's going on? And this guy, he was sweating because he was like really heavy and it was kind of a warm day out. And he was like, oh, blah blah blah. And the guy goes, that's a nice holster you have there. Like, oh thanks, it's alien gear, and he says, what kind of gun is that? And then he's like talking about it, and he's like, can I see it? And this is in Utah, so this is something that is not out of the ordinary. Everybody's still in line, so the guy goes over there to show him his gun, and he's reaching back. Remember, this is a really heavy guy. He's reaching back, and he barely gets his fingertips right on the holster, and he pinches it with his fingers, and he's able to pull, and then pull, and then pull, and then pull, and then finally he has a hold of his firearm, and then he pulls it out, and he shows it to him. And then the guy's like, oh, that's not blah, blah, blah. Where'd you get this? And they kind of go into that conversation. And I'm standing there in line, just holding my stuff, just waiting. And I'm watching this whole thing go down. So he's like, oh, where'd you get this? Whatever the conversation was. And then he's like, oh, yep, the best purchase I've done this year, whatever he said. So then he reaches back and he puts gets his gun right on his holster. And then he pushes it. He pushes it until he gets his little fingertips. And then, and he's standing there in line like this. Yup. And then I'm watching this whole thing go down. I'm like, how ridiculous and inconvenient. Imagine if it was a life and death situation, and he's sitting there and he's reaching out, and he's trying to get his gun and he can't get it because he's so heavy. I recommend, and this is serious, I recommend that if you have a weight issue, like, unless you have a thyroid problem or something, but do a little bit of exercise. It doesn't have to be much, because here and there, just make sure that you are able to maneuver yourself to move, and if you're that big, there's plenty of options. There's plenty of holsters that if you're gonna open carry and you're that big, you can have the side. It does look cool when you have it back here. Normally a lot of people that are concealed carrying, they have something back here, but it's underneath their clothes, so you don't know that they have it until they have to pull it out. But if you have the option and if you're that big, come on, put some common sense. Have your gun where it's accessible, and where you can actually confident, like draw your gun. And practice that drill. Practice drawing your gun. A lot of gun ranges won't let you do that. There's a lot of idiots out there. But you can go to an open range. You can be sure to always take out the magazine. Make sure there's not one in the chamber. Make sure you go through everything. Check it 3 times. Make sure there's no ammunition in it that cannot be fired. Then practice drawing from your holster. A lot of people will grab that holster. They put it on. Never drew from it, and they're out in public and they're confident, and then when time comes, they're like, oh man, it's a retention holster, I forgot which, because now they're panicking and they're odd. As long as you make your movements, you make everything automatic due to habit, or through repetition, it'll be so much easier for you. It could become second nature. It could become part of your nervous system, if you say. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Anyways, so the point is, practice drawing, practice with your tools, the tools that you have. And I'm an AK-47 guy. It's rugged. It's awesome. I can drop it. I can, kick it around. I can play without in the rain. I don't care. But it's a gun that I'm not afraid to damage. It's a gun that I'm not afraid to throw around, that I can roll around with when I'm training, when I'm doing all these things. I see people out there that carry their rifles or their firearms and they have it in that little case. And then they open it and, if you don't have scratches on your gun, if your gun doesn't look like it's been worn, that you're not practicing with your gun. People will say, well, this is my range gun. and this is my home defense gun, and this is my, like, practice with the gun you're gonna use. Same thing with ammunition. I'm losing a lot of people here that don't have firearms, or live in a state where you can't have a firearm. But there's people that will say this is my range ammo. It's the cheap stuff, and this is my home defense ammo. This is the expensive stuff. This is federal. But the gun, a lot of models of guns, except for the Ruger SR, I really like that model. It's probably one of my favorite handgun models. But well, in a semi-automatic, in a semi-automatic variety. But a lot of guns will develop a habit where they will only cycle this type of ammunition. So these people are burning their cheap ammo. They put hundreds of rounds through their American Eagle, their American Eagle ammunition, which is dirt cheap. Then they go home and they replace it with CCI or Federal or Aguila and all that kind of stuff. And then they realize that their gun is so used to cycling the cheap stuff that it doesn't want to cycle the expensive stuff, because the gun became accustomed, the gun became used to that type of ammunition. Practice with what you're going to use. If you use cheap ammunition in the range, have cheap ammunition at home. You want to make sure that it works. So that is my tip in that regard. Let's see. What else? So a lot of people will say, well, Decon, what kind of martial art is best for me? I always think that grappling is very important. I think jiu-jitsu is very important. Judo is very important, because a lot of people will say, well, I only practice standing up. It goes, you have to be well-rounded. Because people will say, it doesn't matter which camp you're in. Like, people that practice jiu-jitsu only, they say stuff like, well, every fight ends in the ground. Maybe it ends up in the ground, but they always start standing up. Nobody's just laying there, or crawling around. They're just crawling, and then they're like, all right, bro, get in my guard. You've been staring at... Like, no. It always starts standing up. So if you don't have a way to defend yourself standing up, if you don't know how to throw a punch, or how to move out of the way to take a punch, how to block a punch, then you're in trouble. So both things. And to the person that's always standing up, he's like, I'm going to end this fight on my feet. I'm able to move. I'm kind of like, Sugar Ray Rob. I'm like Roberto Duran. I can throw my combinations together. And they're like, well, what happens when that person, manages, like, let's say you catch him, pop, 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 and then he gets hit, but he doesn't go down. He's able to grab you somehow, and then you're both on the ground. Now you're both struggling, but guess what? This guy has been here before, and you may not be. So he's able to, grab you, choke you unconscious, and once you're unconscious, he can do whatever he wants to you. Think about that. So always be well-rounded with everything. What's the best martial art? It's multiple martial arts. Cover your bases, So I guess that's it for today. That's all I got. I'm done rambling, so I forgot my outro. What is it? Oh, okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm really tired. Okay, so here we go. I gotta amp myself up for it. Okay. Remember, guys, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you.